Thank you again for being here. Grateful for your time. We're going to make the most of it as we have. This is the last iteration of our very first leadership webinar series on steady leadership. And today, Patrick's going to speak to you on how to get the most out of your meetings, whether you are physically with your folks or virtually with them to get. So there's going to be 5 takeaways from this, hopefully maybe a couple more. Quick introductions. So Patrick Booth is our president CEO. He's going to be the one presenting and leading this thing on the content side, and I am just keeping you entertained in the meantime. Couple things about CCB. So we are a technology company, and we are very, very proud to say that we've been doing this for 29 years now, and our goal has always been to serve those that serve others. It's on our wall downstairs, and it always has been about something beyond the technology. It's more about mission and partnering with folks. And April has been rough. And if you're like us, maybe April's been rough for you as well. So in response to April, we have created 2 offerings to help our customers and our prospects reduce costs and increase efficiency. At the end, you'll see our contact information, myself and Patrick Booth. If you've got questions regarding the details around that and those offerings, and maybe anything else that you see on the screen there, feel free to reach out to us, because again, our heart is to serve, especially now in this chaotic time. And that leads to why the impact of leadership and what this even is. So if we're a technology company, what are you doing in leadership? Which is a fair question, but we believe there's 2 sides of the house, of each business, of each organization, each nonprofit. One side that we can influence is IT. The other side is leadership, because we are leaders and we have a lot of contacts within the leadership realm. So the 2 guest speakers that we brought in are because of the contacts that we have. And Impact Leadership is a division of CCB that focuses on building the leadership side of the house. We help leaders develop the character, the wisdom, the courage, and humor to lead the team that they are responsible for to victory. So we do this by equipping folks like you with the right skills and connecting you all and myself to actually best resources to empower all of us in the leadership role or coming up as leaders to do well, to do this with excellence. So basically, in layman's terms, I see us as helping leaders while having fun. Because if you take fun out of it, it's going to get boring real quick. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick Booth for the content.
Thank you, Steve. All right, I hope everyone's doing good on a Monday. I know it's Monday, but man, in Wisconsin, we had incredible weather yesterday. In the weeks before, we've had wind, we've had rain, we've had snow. Yesterday was just sunshine, and I got out. I hope you did too. But this meeting today is about how do we run more effective meetings, all right? And I've had to learn this. But here's a question. Do you cringe when you hear these words? Hey, got a few minutes for a quick meeting? I know I have, and the reason why is A, it's never a quick meeting, ever, okay? But also, it wasn't on my agenda. I was probably trying to maybe get somewhere or have white space just in between meetings, and then something fills it. It can be really hard, but there is a way that you can run every planned meeting or any unplanned meeting. So let's get to a couple questions though first. So just take this mental test real quick. Do you believe 1 to 5, 5 being awesome, 1 being terrible? Do your meetings, are they run effectively? Okay, so write down just a score for yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got it. Done. Next question. How do you want meetings to be run? Do you want them to be like on time? Is that the most important thing to you? Is it about having an agenda and understanding? Is it about being planned? Don't put a meeting on my plate unless it's planned. I got to know in advance. All right. We all know that happens. Does it need to be, can it be all business and no personal stories? Bob, stop telling me about your weekend. I don't care about that. I just want to know how we're going to move forward. Or is it, I just want to have a party. I just want to have fun. Who brought the nachos? I don't care if we get any work done. I just need to know that we're having fun. So maybe take some time and figure out which one is you, okay? And last question, what type of movie do you like? Yep, threw that one in there. Is it adventure? Is it romance? Is it comedy? And for all you special people out there, go ahead and put rom-com down in case you like them both. Is it a thriller? Is it horror? What is it? If you chose horror, though, let me know because I'm probably going to stop emailing you. Okay. But what is your favorite movie? And there's a purpose behind it, so I'll tell you. Okay. we got those questions out of the way. Meetings are not the problem, as you've seen now for a while on your screen. So what is? Suspense is killing us. How meetings are run is the problem. And that's what I had to learn. So today we're going to get into 5 steps to highly effective meetings. Number 1, and this is things I've learned. I am doing this right now. I'm not perfect. And in case any of you from CCB says, excuse me, I don't think Patrick does this all the time. You're right. I'll own it. But what I have learned, the meetings I come out of that I feel most energized is when we have an agenda. There's clarity. People understand. They come prepared. How can you have a successful meeting if people don't know ahead of time what they need to be sharing about? A lot of times you hear, you know what? That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Now that might happen, but what if that happens on every topic you have? Was the meeting really effective? It wasn't. Let people know ahead of time what you're going to be talking about. Second one, state the purpose and goals of the meeting. What are we trying to achieve here? The reason why this is also super important is it's so easy to get off track. I'm one of those people. If I start hearing something, I might actually gravitate towards it. And I need to have somebody bring me back to say, hey, just to bring clarity to this isn't part of our purpose and our goal of this meeting. Can you guys talk about that later? You know what? You're right. Thank you for bringing us back on track. Again, agendas, stating the purpose and goals, super important. That goes to number 3, keeping the focus on the goals. Okay, kind of combine those two together, but it's so important because I think we've all been in meetings where it just completely, you end and you're like, what was this meeting even about? I thought this was about the subject line. That meeting had nothing to do with that. Again, have an agenda, keep the purpose and the goals, make sure they know that ahead of time so they can come prepared, but also keep that focus because you don't want anybody leaving the meeting saying, did we even talk about anything this meeting was scheduled for? Next, be specific on who is doing what. This was a big miss on my part that I really had to look in the mirror and say, okay, Patrick, at the end of the day, you talked about everything. You had an agenda. Everyone knows. But who's doing what? I mean, if you don't assign roles, that's like not having, my kids are in theater. If nobody had a part, well, then who's supposed to know who's supposed to take the lead and who's supposed to be the support role? And every job matters, but people need to know what their role is. And you have to be very specific. So there isn't also a lot of people doing crosswork on each other, you know, stepping on each other's toes, whatever you want to say, it doesn't work well. You want to have a good flow, but being specific is the key. Giving deadlines. Now, not everyone likes deadlines. I know I like to know when I have to have something due, but at the same time, I also like the flexibility to work within my schedule. So I think you have to give deadlines, but be sensitive and conscientious to like how you're going to be setting those deadlines because everyone has different things on their plate. Maybe you have to think about the priority of what already is due right now. Don't throw another thing on somebody's plate that they already have like 10 things due that day. Maybe you need to ask them and say, what's a fair deadline for you to have this done by? But if you don't leave at the deadline, now that's open to interpretation, which can be a huge problem because that person said, I thought I had 2 months to get it done. Well, in my head, I thought you knew I wanted it done by Friday. If you don't communicate that, why would you be on the same page? You're not. So I have learned the hard way about these things. I'm telling you, I have tried to do these and try to be better, and each one has helped our meetings run more effectively. Okay, now meetings are meetings. Okay, but wait a minute, Patrick. I don't have like face-to-face meetings anymore. I have virtual meetings. This is a fun screenshot that my team and marketing put together of Tim and Olivia of maybe some of the things you've seen on your virtual meetings where you can't see the person's face. Oh, wait, somebody forgets in box number 2 at the top in the middle that they're actually on a video conference while they're on their cell phone. Then there's looking up the nostrils. We all have had this happen, whether it's with family members or team members. It's not the best view. Okay. Then there's the person having their snack time. I guess probably not the right thing to be doing. And then we have Tim, who is relaxing and chilling. He has a beverage there on the corner. But he doesn't really, in my opinion, as I'm observing him, he doesn't seem like he's really interested in business right now. He's just kind of showing up, but physically, but not really emotionally. And then the son, oh my gosh, who is this person? Are they in the witness protection program? We've all seen this where it's like, can you change your camera view? And then the cat, the pets. We love pets. I love pets. But do they need to be on the video conference call? I didn't invite them. No. Go ahead and put them to the side. Play with them later. And Tim relaxing on the couch. He's chilling. So I love my mark. Oh, and the black screen. And I found this recently where I did a meeting and like I think there was about 6 people on there. 5 showed up in the video. The one didn't. It was weird. We're all looking at each other as up. Is that person on or not? I would just say you should require everyone to be on if possible. Because it makes it flow better if you're doing virtual meetings. So I think I will be fair to say in-person meetings are way different than in virtual meetings. I know that there's some positives, but I told somebody yesterday that in a meeting with everyone physically, I don't have to see everyone's expression at one time. I actually can look at somebody or look around the room and I take the expressions in differently. When I'm on a video conference call, I see everyone's expression at the same time and it throws me off sometimes. Are they mad? Are they processing? Are they happy? Are they smiling? Why aren't they smiling? You know, it's a lot. So I will just say, I think the 5 steps are super important, whether you're doing a meeting in person or virtual, but there is a difference between the two. This is a quote that I've heard in my last couple years in business that has really hit my heart. Dave Ramsey has said this. He isn't the original person of this quote, but I do think it's important to give credit to at least the times he said it, which is to be unclear is to be unkind. Now, what does that mean? What it means is it goes back to the agenda and the deadlines. If you expect people to show up ready for a meeting, but you don't tell them what the meeting's about, how can they be prepared? If you're saying, asking all these questions and you wanted in your mind that you wanted those answers before that meeting ended, but they had no time to be prepared, that's unkind to them. And you're going to leave frustrated, they're going to leave frustrated, and that can really hurt your team morale. The other one is if you don't give deadlines, in your mind, you wanted it by Friday. In their mind, they thought you wanted it like before the quarter's over or in the next 2 months. That's unclear and that's unkind. So I would just say, keep that in mind. Now, why did I start talking about meetings and where did I get this all coming from? Well, I've been wondering for a while of how to make meetings better, but then I listened to this book. Yes, I'm more of an audio learner than I am of reading the books. So do whatever works for you. But Death by Meaning by Patrick Lencioni. And I don't know if you've heard of Patrick Lencioni. He's very well known in the industry for writing these books, but he does it in a different way. This isn't like him just giving you bullet points. He's actually telling you a story. And in this situation, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it does take a business leader who is starting to struggle to see the results he wants. And he brought in basically a new I believe CEO at the time, and the CEO basically started realizing that the meetings weren't going well. Okay, and with that being said, there was a lot of things that were being adjusted along the way to basically understand that. And to be fair, actually, I just crossed 2 stories together, and I apologize. The other one is the 5 dysfunctionals of a team. Death by Meeting is about the CEO, but the CEO is not seeing why he's not being successful. And it turns out one of the things he realizes is the meetings are not going well because the key thing is every movie he brings in an intern, and the intern tells him that it's about not having conflict. But now wait a minute, because in every movies, which goes back to the movie question, every movie has conflict, whether it's a romance, a comedy, a thriller, a horror movie, or an action movie, there's always conflict. And with that being said, now I'm not saying that you bring Jerry Springer conflict to your meetings. Okay. Nobody wants that. Okay. I do not think that will go well. So do not quote me on that. Okay. I was saying that that's how you should do your meetings. But if you actually have healthy conflict where you have something to say it. Bring it in a way that's respectful though to the person in the room. That's a huge key to everything. Tone, respect, all the things, but you should be able to disagree with each other. You should be able to push back. And if you actually have healthy conflict, I guarantee you'll see a growth. If you think of every situation you've grown in, it usually comes under pressure of some kind. Diamonds are made under pressure. I've never seen a diamond made. I see them in the stores, but I believe it's true. You have to have that pressure in order to have growth happen. Okay. Now, again, my goal for all of you today is hopefully taking these 5 steps so you can actually go and maybe apply some of them at what you feel comfortable with to help these meetings not be what I think some people feel like, which is a clock. I'm just watching my time. I'm watching my cell phone, or I'm watching the corner of my laptop screen. I'm just counting the minutes until the meetings are over. And I think we've been there before, where we're not engaged or we don't feel that we're getting anything out of it. Then we just start watching the clock, thinking about when is it to our next break until I can go do something more productive. Make the meetings be the most productive part of the day. And that's the great thing about the story with Patrick Lencioni. Movies, they're entertaining and they're exciting, but they're just movies. You want your meetings to be way more productive and way more meaningful than somebody watching a movie. But if you asked your team, would you rather watch a movie or have a meeting? I'm going to go with most people would say a movie, if it was the one they got to pick, probably. But why not getting the team to say, I would rather have a meeting because it's going to give me more fulfillment, which is the most important thing I need in my life when it comes to my job, how to do it better. Now, we've all been in meetings, and this is some comic relief here with Kevin Hart. When you want the staff meeting to end and somebody keeps asking questions, has anybody ever given that look to somebody? I have. And maybe you've received the look yourself. But then there's the other side. You don't want somebody just smiling at you. This is the best meeting ever. And they're smiling, kind of cheesy and uncomfortable while they're eating their banana. Basically, there's no thought behind it. They're just giving you what you want to hear. This is the best meeting ever. You don't want that either. You want productiveness, right? So what I would encourage all of you is get the meetings set up so you're ready, set, now let's work. Again, I like this slide because it's red, yellow, green. That's how we live our life when we drive. You know when to stop, you know when to slow down or when to speed up. And then green is it's time to go. There's no more waiting. Set your team up for success with these 5 effective steps, and I think you will really enjoy the results. Okay, I'm going to hand this back over to Steve. I do apologize about getting that story mixed up, but if you have any more questions, I will try my best to answer them for you.
All right, awesome, Patrick. So again, if you navigate to the Q&A section, we got a couple things that came in. You can submit a question there. We'll take a couple minutes here, and then we'll wrap this thing up by 10:30. So one thing that is that's in the chat here, and I'll phrase it as a question. It's more in response to something you said earlier about it depends on the group I'm meeting with, and if the information is pertinent to me, then about the social interaction aspect of a meeting. So what I think this comment is getting after is if I'm in a meeting and there's a lot of social interaction happening, I'm fine with it. But if I don't feel involved, then I kind of start to feel like, let's get this meeting over with and done. So phrasing that as a question, what have you done, Patrick, to take a social interaction, and there might be some outliers that aren't in on this thing that happened over the weekend, to make sure that there is engagement in the room?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and I completely respect where you're coming from, because nobody wants to be left out in the conversation or feel like it's not uh, pertinent for them. I would say this, that I know when I see somebody maybe isn't engaged, I might actually ask them, like, "Hey, so specifically, Bob, what'd you do this weekend? Just curious." And if Bob says nothing, then I'm not going to force him to say anything. But I also think it's good for the leader in the room to recognize if it's not bringing everyone together, then you need to be able to cut that off, kind of cut it short, like, and say, "Hey, that was great. Why don't we talk afterwards? If anybody wants to talk more about that, we can do." I just think it's intelligent, emotional intelligence and awareness to understand how it's pulling people either in together. Now, again, I will say, if everyone's talking in the room, and that's great, you got to be able to also know when to cut it off, because you could lose a lot of productive time. And I would say if you're focused on ending on time, then you got to be careful that you don't lose time on information that doesn't matter. So again, as the leader, whoever is running the room, and you say, well, but if the leader isn't aware of it, then I would say, guess what? Healthy conflict. Why don't you speak up then? Do it respectfully, but say, "Hey guys, I'm not trying to be mean, but I know we really got to get some things done here in this meeting. So would you guys mind if we talk about this afterwards, after we get through our stuff?"
Okay.
Again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Be respectful.
So a couple other things that came in, two of them actually have to do with time frames on meetings. And I know that in the book and in the slide that you had up there that Pat Lencioni talks about how time can restrict the meeting flow, but then lots of people, including myself, sometimes I'm looking at like, okay, let's bang this out in 30 minutes. So I'm going to kind of combine these two things that between Katie and Tim into a question. So time limits, is it effective? Is it ineffective to put time limits? And if it's effective, or what have you found to be most effective from a time framing standpoint? Is it 30 minutes, 15 minutes, stand-up meetings, an hour? What would you say, Patrick?
Yeah, and Steve, I'm glad you mentioned the book again. In the book, it does talk about there's a lot of variations of meetings. Like you don't have to have one set meeting where every meeting has to be 30 minutes. It really comes down to what you're trying to achieve. And Steve, you've done this in sales where you guys will have stand-up meetings where it's only 10 minutes. And I think you have found and you've changed a little bit about what the goal is for each of those meetings over the time. And I do think it's good to change things up. I guess that's my point too. Let it go for a while. And if it's working, it's great. But I do think it's good to maybe change it up a little bit with maybe what the focus is. Because at the end of the day, you want the meetings to be productive. So you have to look as a leader, are you getting the results you want? One thing I noticed is our VP meeting was always Wednesdays at 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. And again, 5 o'clock, it is personal. And my executives, they all put in way more than just the normal 8 hours. But one thing I noticed is one of our VPs, he had to leave right away at 5 o'clock because he had to get his kids to their activities. And so I asked, finally, it took me a while. I'm not going to say I figured this out right away. I finally said, hey, would it make more sense to move the meetings from 2 to 4? Because what we would end up doing at 5 is having to cut the meeting off right then. And it was this book that got me to realize you shouldn't cut a meeting off if there's more things to talk about. But you should make the time be realistic. So we ended up saying, let's move it from 2 to 4. And then, we haven't really been able to do a lot of testing on it because of the COVID-19 and being at home. But I do think you have to be flexible. You have to be able to move things around. And I would say that every meeting is a little different. One of the things I've learned in my personal life when I've been in meetings, I've done P's and T's. And I've learned this through a study that I've done where you list down P's as the participants and you put down T as the time for each question. So if you do list down how many participants you want to have or the time, and you have to get through like a bunch of questions, just knowing that you've already planned out what the time was for that question keeps you on time. Now, again, I will say if the conversation needs to go longer, I wouldn't cut it off, but I would find a way to make it be productive. And yet you might need that discipline. And I know I need it in my life in order to get through all the questions. I might need the P's and T's so I don't get stuck on the first question and miss the other 29 that we have to go through. So I think the key is flexibility. Having different types of meetings are super important. Read that book. Listen to that book. It will help you tremendously as it helped me. And I would say you're not stuck. Try something. If it doesn't work, then change it. But I think you got to give it some time to breathe to know if it works or not. Okay?
It's good.
Steve, anything that you would share from your stand-up meetings that maybe would help to that question?
I actually wrote down the phrase that you just said, because you've said it to me multiple times, that I'm not stuck. And it's good to have a reminder that you aren't stuck. So as a leader, authoritative leader, you have to be willing to move, but then where do you move if you're not sure what to move? Well, ask, what am I missing? Take those 5 things. If I was going to say a takeaway and an action item, which is what I do in the podcast all the time from this conversation, Patrick, is takeaway is that you're not stuck and healthy conflict is essential. So if you have healthy conflict and you realize that you're not stuck, which is as a takeaway, what does that lead to is from an action item standpoint? I think then you have to relook at how your meetings are run. Is there healthy conflict? Does it fall like through the lens of those 5 points that you made before? I think that there's a lot to be said for running a pilot as you've done, Patrick. So a pilot program, hey team, we're going to switch stuff up from our meetings, and just saying, from my point of view, I think this has gotten a little stale. So let's switch it up a little bit. I have done that. Stephanie Bradshaw, who's on the team, she completely redid how we do our Monday morning stand-up meetings. But the thing that we needed to do was change that, because why I started that Monday morning stand-up meeting was to make sure that people were ready to run versus limping their way into the week. So we started the day Monday mornings for 10 minutes talking about the big three that people need to get through this week, big three things that people need to get through, customers, projects, things like that. So instead of keeping it exactly the same, Stephanie had the idea to combine it with these topics of having people present on specific topics, and that increased engagement, that increased people on the team looking. They might not necessarily be leaning forward and looking forward to the meeting itself, but it did change it up, and it increased engagement, and people weren't just bored out of their mind waiting for the meeting to end, which it was stale. So takeaway, you're not stuck. Healthy conflict is a good thing. So look into how you can increase healthy conflict, because a bad movie, as Patrick talked about, a 90-minute bad movie could seem like 4 hours. And then a good movie, like The Irishman, in my opinion, could be 3 hours plus, and it goes by pretty quick because there's healthy conflict and you're engaged. Action item, look at how your meetings are run and compare to the 5 steps that you laid out, Patrick. That would be what I say.
I think that's awesome. Thank you, Steve, for sharing that, because I know you've been living it out. So I thought it would be helpful for everyone. So thank you.
So a couple more slides to transition to. I know we can't get to all of the questions, but something that has been put in the chat here by Katie is about the recording from last Friday. She wasn't able to be there, asking about the recording. So a couple things. I put this slide up because it ties to that. We actually have the recording is supposed to be going out today with the recording of this this episode here, or this session here. And so you will be able to get that. So if you're registered, you'll get both of those today. And what you see on the screen here is our response to the positive interaction that we've had with you all and others about this leadership series. So we're going to do another webinar series, but we're switching up the format. Again, we want to keep the engagement high, so we don't want to just keep recycling the same old, same old. And on May 8th and May 15th, these are the two speakers, two guest speakers. Jack Aldrich, he's known as a futurist. You can look him up. He does a lot with rethinking, so re-engagement, reigniting, reimagining, relearning. And he's going to talk to us about the future post this COVID stuff. What does it look like? What does the new normal look like from his standpoint? This is what he does professionally. Look him up. You're going to enjoy that. And then May 15th, Derrick Gaunt. He is a former hostage negotiator, 20-year veteran out of, I believe it's New York. And he wrote a book called Ego, Authority, and Failure. So we're going to talk about how leaders fail. Ego, authority, failure kind of ties together. And then tactical empathy. So if you listen to the recording, or if you were part of Todd Bolsinger's talk, he talked about tactical empathy, and it came from this guy, Derrick Gaunt, and his boss, Chris Voss, who wrote Never Split the Difference. Coming up with other leadership resources for you for free, $99. Clay Scroggins and Darcy Loma. Darcy Loma was our speaker last week, Friday. She talked about our thoughtfully fit framework. So what we do is we get deeper into that, specific to the power of positive conflict, which ties to today's talk, almost like we did that on purpose, with healthy conflicts. What does that look like? What does that sound like? You can listen to that podcast coming up. And Clay Scroggins, because not everybody that listens to the podcast is an authoritative leader. So he wrote a book called How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. And that's the crux of our conversation as well. The URL is at the bottom of the screen there, or you can stream it wherever you get your podcasts from. Send us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Here's our contact information. And again, you'll get this in the slides today, so I don't need to spend any more time there. Thank you. You can do a lot with this time. We are grateful that you chose to spend it with us. We look forward to seeing you again down the line, and engage with us. Thanks.